Hey, nice to see you here. Today we're going to look at the USB microphone from the company Marantz, the MPM-1000U USB condenser microphone, which you can just plug into your computer and start recording. Very easy to use this USB type of gear. And that's exactly why these USB condenser mics are so popular with beginners who want to do podcasting or live streaming or maybe YouTube videos like me. And guys, obviously using a USB mic, while it is very compact and easy to transport and doesn't need any more room on your desk, it also has a small disadvantage, and that's compared to XLR. On the other hand, a USB mic doesn't give you the ability to connect it to different pieces of gear. So in sound test part 3B and 3A, we're going to compare these two mics. We're going to test against my standard reference Shure, which is an XLR mic where you need more gear like XLR cable, tube preamp, audio interface, or just an audio interface with XLR input. So that way you get an impression how a USB condenser mic sounds when comparing it, for example, against an XLR mic. Obviously, there are tons of different mics and tons of different pieces of audio gear, and that's why you can also head over to my channel page and look in the audio section, because there you can find a bunch of different reviews. By now I have done a lot of different XLR mics, a bunch of USB interfaces, and I also started a while ago including more USB microphones, since this seems to be a popular category. Guys, awesome you're here. Why don't we just get rolling with the unboxing? I show you a few close-up shots and then we jump to the sound test. You can always use the navigation in the video below. And let's get rolling and see how this microphone performs. Let's get started, guys. Excellent, guys. Then hey, let's have a closer look at the Marantz MPM-1000U condenser, USB condenser microphone. And yeah, guys, it's always interesting to see what's inside the package, how the product is packaged, and what you get for your money if you are shopping for a microphone. As you can see here, you have the mic itself, USB cable, and the adapter for your microphone stand, and a manual, as well as the spec sheet, where you see the pickup pattern and frequency response. The analog to digital conversion actually happens within the microphone itself. So there ain't that much space to put the components. Also, because essentially it's the microphone and a sound card converter chip. So I'm pretty sure there's also an MPM-1000 without the U, and then it's an XLR. So that's always a trade-off that you have when you use a USB mic. The analog to digital converter often I see is only 16-bit, versus when you have an external sound card, the analog to digital converter, I mean the XLR mic and the external USB interface, the analog to digital converter is often 24-bit. But we're going to see how this sounds in just a second. What I noticed, I'm not sure how well this shows on the camera, is the microphone is not that big. I mean, I feel it's a little bit smaller than some of the other models that I reviewed. Maybe it's because I just did the Samson before this. So I think the smart thing is here to just pick this and show you the comparison. So these microphones, USB microphones, they can have different sizes. And other than that, it's pretty straightforward. Let's quickly put on the adapter. You just put this on here and then turn it a little bit. And we are ready to go for the sound test. So make sure you have a microphone stand as well. And then there are two different, guys, how do you pronounce this? Threads that you can use, a bigger one or a smaller one. So if you have the bigger one, obviously you take the adapter out. If you have the smaller one, you put the adapter in. In my case, I have the smaller one. So that's all there is to this USB mic. Then sometimes the cable is a little bit longer, sometimes it's a little bit shorter. So that's also something you can keep in mind. We're gonna jump right now into the computer and do the sound test part and listen to this Marantz professional USB microphone. Guys, I hope I pronounced this right. Otherwise, build quality looks very nice. So let's get started with part 3, the sound test. Awesome, 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 guys. Right now we jump to sound test part 3 and you're listening to the Marantz MPM-1000U. Guys, I hope I pronounced the company name right. Condenser, USB condenser mic, which I already tested a little bit. I played around with it a little bit, and the sound quality was surprisingly good. I really like how this microphone sounds. At least that was my first impression. And Obviously, if you're on the Windows, guys, I'm always using the Mac because this is really nice for video editing. If you're on the Windows, the settings are somewhat similar. You just go to sound and then you pick the device, and here's the USB microphone. And you can see I had to put the microphone sensitivity pretty high. It says 90%, but it sounds pretty good, doesn't it? So let's dive a little bit deeper into the settings. We also have the audio MIDI setup. And guys, I'm not exactly sure what the equivalent is under Windows 10. I rarely use Windows, except I really have to. And here we have like 16 bits. So guys, I also challenge you to look around when you're shopping for a USB microphone. Most USB microphones, from all I can tell, they are 16-bit. Obviously, there are some USB mics, maybe a little bit more pricier ones, that support 24-bit. Which in theory at least should give you an even better sound quality. But so far 16-bit seems to sound pretty good. And we are recording with 48 hertz, and you can also set different settings, but I wouldn't go lower than 44.1 because that's the CD quality and that's the DVD quality. Guys, what's your first impression of this mic? Would that be something that you are happy with when recording your podcast or live stream? I think it's pretty workable. Obviously, if you're a little bit further away, then maybe you have to turn the volume up all the way to 100%. Always make sure to check your levels, because if I would turn it to 100% right now, I'm pretty close to the mic, so it probably, there you can see it, it can distort, so watch your levels. And with that, this concludes sound test part 3A. And what we're going to do right now, because one of the discussions that I raised with you in the beginning was USB mic versus XLR mic, and I repeated this throughout the video that the XLR mic, at least in my opinion, should give you the better quality, but obviously the USB mic is more compact and easier to use. And with the XLR mic, obviously you have to probably spend more because you have to have different pieces of gear, external interface, maybe a preamp, various cables. So let's jump to sound test part 3B and compare this USB mic against a conventional XLR mic, so you have a good orientation what to consider when picking a microphone for your podcasting, live streaming, or like me, just a screen recording and YouTube video. So let's jump to next sound test part and check the XLR mic. Very good, guys. Right now we jump to sound test part 3B, and right now you're not hearing anymore the Marantz MPM-1000U, but instead I have switched over. I mean, you don't see the desktop anymore. Instead you see the screen with the tube preamp right here. So we switched to an XLR mic, and we switched to the Shure SM58, which I always like to compare a lot in many of my videos. And just quickly, let me point out that while the Marantz was a 16-bit recording resolution, right now with the Shure connected to the preamp, the signal travels via XLR cable into the preamp and then gets preamplified, and then I can also regulate the output volume. I can do some signal processing here, like limiter or compressor if I wanted to, and then the signal comes out of the tube preamp, which also tends to get a little bit warm, gets out and goes into my old Firewire interface. And that old Firewire interface, in fact, has a 24-bit recording resolution. So you get a higher recording resolution often when you don't use USB mics, but instead you go with traditional XLR gear, because lots of the USB interfaces that I tested, for example, they tend to have, most of the time, if it's not the low end of the price segment, they tend to have a lot of these interfaces tend to have 24 bits. So you'll be the judge which you like more from the sound. Obviously, it's a totally different microphone. This is a dynamic microphone. This is a condenser microphone. So that also plays into that. But nonetheless, you have a good comparison with my standard comparison mic. And this, guys, already concludes the sound test. If you want, you can head over to my channel page. A lot of people like to compare different devices, for example these tube preamps, before you make a purchase decision. I personally love tube preamps a lot because they can give you a nice warm sound. But again, I was really surprised how well this USB mic on the other hand also sounded. So this concludes the review. Guys, let's jump to finally part 4, the summary and conclusion part. Terrific, guys, excellent. This concludes the review of the Marantz MPM-1000U USB condenser microphone. And I have to say, I'm really pleased with the way this microphone sounds. In my opinion, it performed quite nicely. Obviously, you will need a microphone stand, and that also can have an effect if the microphone stand is a little bit higher up. I know the microphone will perform much better because you're talking directly into it, as opposed to you would have one of these super tiny microphone stands. That's just simply too low in my opinion. So that's something you may want to consider. I'm going to link the big microphone stand as well below the video, guys. And yeah, with the USB cable, that was a little bit too short in my opinion. It could have been a little bit longer, simply because in my particular setup, the computer sits right next to my desk, and I have to route the USB cable up here. And I just wish the cable would have been a little bit longer. But other than that, the Marantz MPM-1000U really makes up the little bit too short of a USB cable to the really good sound. I really like the way this particular microphone sounded. And yeah, I mean, it's not super expensive, but it's also not super cheap. I would call it maybe mid-range in my opinion. And I think it will do a pretty good job for recording podcasting, live streams, or like me, YouTube videos. Guys, you're also invited to head over to my channel page. I show this to you here because people like to compare, and on my channel page you find a lot of different audio interfaces, different USB mics, more expensive ones, cheaper ones, as well as also lavalier mics if you want to connect it directly to a camera and make YouTube videos such as me. So that's usually something people find useful. I see you in the next video, and as a subscriber, all the best to you. Have fun with your new gear.
And because you just watched the USB mic review, you might also be interested in comparing the USB microphone against some other XLR gear. I have, for example, reviewed a bunch of USB audio interfaces where you can connect a little bit more high quality XLR gear to, and a lot of people have already subscribed to my channel because of the useful content I provide. If you like, you can subscribe right now as well. I see you in the next video. Take care.